Hey, what's going on, everybody? And thanks for joining us. This is The Interview. I have a good friend of mine, Donald Thomas Lloyd. And Don, we've got some breaking business to get into. So first, how you doing? How are things?
Well, I'll tell you, Alex, I have a rockin' business. I'm raising 4 beautiful children, getting ready to add a daughter to our family through marriage. She won't be a daughter-in-law. She'll be a daughter. And I got a smoking hot wife. That's how I'm doing.
Can't beat that. So, of course, we're here on important business. So I got to ask, what's going on here?
Well, have you ever heard of the organization called BBH Pride?
Of course, yes.
They have been spending time attacking conservatives in Brecksville and Broadview Heights, organizations, businesses, political candidates. I'm their latest target. And they don't like some of the things that I say. So they take information out of context, wrap it up in their pretty, beautiful pink bow, and send it off to boards of directors that I sit on. And then people go, wow, this is awful.
Of course.
I think if we dive into it a little bit here, we'll have some examples of how it's not really that awful.
Of course. So would you like us to start with the letter that you've presented me with?
Yeah, that's the best place to start.
So we have a letter here that was presented to Don. So Don, give a little background. You're on a theater board here in Brecksville, Broadview Heights.
Yes.
And you were presented with this letter here, and a bit of it. Do you want me to give a little bit of a reading, or?
Yeah, I can't see it at all. That's a little better. Okay, so the group BBH Pride sent this letter to the board of directors for the Brecksville Theater and said basically that Don Lloyd's a bad guy.
And it seems also here that a part of the letter, so they're raising that they have concerns of sexism, racism, transphobia, homophobia, false accusations. Of course, the R word triggers everybody. And they indicate here that they have attached copies of instances. I guess the best way to go about this would be really to address some of those instances, right? You want me to?
Yes. Yeah, let's start.
So do you want me to go to the posts that they attached? I think you've given me some of those.
Yeah.
Here is the list of posts that they have found problematic and request you to address.
Oh, this is the Caitlin Clark one.
Of course.
Unless you're living under a rock, everyone in the world has heard of Caitlin Clark. And now everybody in the world has finally heard of the WNBA, which really is not a successful business at all. However, Caitlin Clark has really sparked some interest, right? She had that wonderful run with the NCAA tournament. So this one that we're looking at here is there we go. Caitlin Clark's getting abused by other players because she's a great player. She's white and not a lesbian.
Here's something that's fact that any community needs to address. The WNBA faces an athletic dynamic that no other league in sports does, and that is inner relationships between players. Baseball doesn't have that. Football doesn't have that. It's really just this one league, predominantly in this one sport on the one side. And there's we've gone over videos of Caitlin Clark, and it's interesting where you have players intervening and like protecting opposing players, not because they're in the right, but because that's an ex-girlfriend or something else. So it weights the dynamic on the floor in the sport in a totally different way. And our inability to acknowledge these realities tends to be what puts us in these fragile corners where we're afraid of losing our livelihood and jobs and everything else.
Well, it sure does. And this particular video is a video. I don't follow the WNBA, so I don't know the name of this, the person that's in this part of the screenshot, but she just goes and lays Caitlin Clark out in this video. And this was, oh God, it probably spent 3 or 4 days of all kinds of sports analysts saying exactly what I typed, which really was me going to my page and saying, hey, let's take a look at this particular situation. We have sports analysts that are saying she's getting attacked because of all of those things.
Sure.
What's wrong with that?
So, fair question. And I think a big theme. First, we'll go through some of this.
Okay.
But then I also believe the theme that we're going to come across at the end is where the rubber meets the road, where you see an opinion and you're just stating it. But then on the other side of the hand, where are they allowed to just dismiss you, whether they're in the right or not? The problem is where do you have rights to this type of relationship? So let's go through it a bit further.
Okay.
Let's look at, here's the second one. This is something you can say, but
Sure.
Vulgarity does kind of change the speech you're trying to protect. And while it may be protected on your own personal Facebook, does it change in terms of an at-will relationship with like a private organization? So like, what are your thoughts with something like this?
Yeah. So this is a comedy meme. This is comedy, right? Everybody that knows who Ron Burgundy is remembers that scene in the film where he said, "I'm Ron Burgundy, go yourself, San Diego."
Right.
And he loses his entire job over it. Okay. But let's take a look at the organization. It's not even an organization. Queers for Palestine. If you recall, during the massive protests at Harvard and Yale, but I think primarily Harvard Yard was a big one, where we saw signs after signs after signs of people they were carrying signs that said Queers for Palestine. What they're missing is the unfortunate part. If you're gay in Palestine, you're being thrown off a building. You're being shot in the head.
But it's so much worse here in America. Oh my God. Again, you're trying to apply sense to the nonsensical.
It's using absurdity to illustrate absurdity.
Sure.
That's really what I'm doing here.
Okay, again, a fair point, but it draws an emotion, right? Not from us, but maybe from someone else.
Sure.
And is that emotion justified? At what point are you obligated to protect that feeling that they may have? But that all being said, you look at something like this and you have the word queers,
Mhm.
and that's like a trigger point.
But
But it's also the sky is blue.
of course.
So here's where they got you in a corner. You can't say the sky is blue,
Mhm.
but also it's blue. So like if we just had a conversation right now about queers, we'd have to be walking on eggshells, worried about but wait, is that not what you are? I'm so confused. You have all these letters. Is the Q not one of them? But if you used it as just in a social setting, it goes up people's spines because that's how. And why is there a sensitivity amongst these topics? To me, you protect these sensitivities, you protect open and free dialogues about these because you cannot combat the truth. And so you have to silence the truth. Otherwise, if you're so in the right, people wouldn't have to be afraid of just the title of your team, like saying your words. They're your words. And it feels like there's a target on you around every turn. And that's, I think, the compelling mechanism that forces people to comply. They comply out of fear, not because they necessarily agree or associate with the logic, but if I am on the side that's attacking, then it never attacks me. And it's a wrong way of looking at it, but I think that's the way many do.
Well, I don't use that word. To me, it's a derogatory word. I just don't use it. Right. This was a meme that I shared to illustrate the point of what is happening in our educational system.
But we acknowledge there is a vulgarity.
Of course, there's a vulgarity, just like the N-word.
Sure.
And really, I think you could say that word is.
And actually, I don't want to get my point to get twisted. I'm not saying the vulgarity is just the title of them saying queer, but the expletive of throwing an F-bomb on your Facebook, that's the more triggering word in my opinion.
Well, that word was added, and
of course.
So it's I'm just trying to illustrate the point of how far. I mean, you were in college much more recent than I was. I think both of us will agree that the institution of education is collapsing in the United States, right?
Totally.
I mean,
totally.
You're the man that graduated law school, not me.
But, and trust me, they try to teach through the Socratic method, so they claim. But if you did not spout out the opinions of one side, it would either impact your social experience and or literally your grade. And so many people complied with the indoctrination and spoke the words of the ideological cult, not because they agreed with it, but again, out of fear for preservation.
And I am constantly looking at our institutions in this country and watching them collapse. And the institution of education in this country is failing. Not every school is failing. Not every school district is failing. Not every university is failing. The institution itself is. Because how is it possible that at a place like Harvard, you've heard of Harvard?
Correct.
Right? You've heard, right? Yeah. So how is it possible that a place like Harvard could have students that are gay that support Palestine? Because if Palestine takes us over, not that they will, but if they could, they would be the first people to be killed.
Which again, I want to commend you. If your position is going to be that the institution of academics and universities is a failing institution, just like they say, I don't know, the police institution is a failing institution. Instead of trying to throw the baby out with the bathwater or turn it off entirely, you rose to the call that many don't, which is become the change you want to see. So you involved yourself in these systems.
Well, and it's frightening to do that.
Well, you have to be careful because again, you're back to walking on eggshells.
Well, I don't walk on eggshells. I stomp on them.
Clearly.
I stomp on them. You know what? I have 4 kids and I want them to live in freedom and liberty. And I'm frightened that they won't because of the left. The left does not embrace truth. Truth is not a left-wing value.
There's something there. Well, okay, but to get Ron Burgundy cussing off the screen,
But we still love
I-
Ron Burgundy,
of
right?
course, I have an inquiry for you. Coming here to the third one. Okay, so this article refers to the Trevor Space. It's also listed on the BBH Pride website as a resource for children and adults aged 13 to 24 years old, where adults can prey on children and meet up and grape them. The creepy liberal women that share this with our kids need to be prosecuted. Now, I
yeah.
want to inquire about this because going through a lot of the evidence you had supplied me, this is the one that stood out the most. I guess, what is it that is soliciting this heinous crime, as you so claim?
Well, let's just kind of break this whole thing down. Can you blow that up again for
Yes,
me?
please.
Okay. So Trevor Space is a website or chat rooms and things like that where children who are questioning where they are from their sexuality as they're starting to go through puberty and figure out what they are, is a place where they can go to talk to other kids and young adults and ask questions and get answers. Right? On the surface, the intentions are great.
Sure.
I mean, who could be against that? Right? A safe place where kids can go and learn. Okay. But this also points out the lies that BBH Pride has engaged in.
Oh,
Well, take a look at this thing. They took down, or they removed, or didn't include the headline.
right. So the screenshot perfectly cuts out the headline to this article.
It does. It does. So they're just focusing on my words. So now we're 1,000%
Convenient.
out of context, because the headline is this: Santa Ana Unified Schools, Santa Ana, California,
Of course.
the most liberal place in the world, public school district. This is not a private school system. Removes LGBT website and hotlines due to liability.
But we allow them to remain.
In BBH Pride,
Right.
it's on their website.
So this was even too crazy for California. Whoa.
So what had happened was a teacher in this school district went on to the Trevor Space, 50 years old, created a username, and was able to go in the kids chat rooms. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah.
I mean, it seems to me that Chris Hansen would love to know a little bit about this, because if you're thinking that there aren't creepy adults going
Wow.
in and trying to pick up kids,
See, here's
you're
the problem.
nuts.
Can I be honest with you?
You can be honest.
Part of the problem is the logical people are not mobilized. And again, as I've spoken, it's because
They're
they're
frightened.
free.
They're
It's
frightened.
because
No,
of
they're
fear.
scared.
Right.
Yeah.
But here's the truth. Any person with a, working brain that saw the full context of that article,
Mhm.
or realizes the gravity of the situation being there is a website that can be used maliciously. Other entities that use it have found it to be problematic
Mhm.
and have removed themselves from it.
Leftist areas.
Exactly. So the truth is, I'm not one to encourage fighting fire with fire. That's not always the way to resolve this. But we can't even have real conversation. Like, I was about to make the claim, these things are so crazy. Okay, whether it is or isn't, we can't even have a real conversation about them because it's such a protected class, a protected dialogue. And if the other side was passionate enough or strong enough, organized enough, and again, we don't have $1 billion rainbow flag to unite us and organize these movements. But really, everybody in Brecksville, Broadview Heights should be writing a letter to any of these organizations, the theater or whatever, that associates with the the rainbow people
or
and
or
the
let-
Brecksville
not-
Broadview Heights rainbow folks
until they get
for
rid
having that website.
to get rid
Exactly.
of the Trevor Project from
They
their
should be held
website.
accountable for having something sick like that
That's right.
too.
That's
And
right.
convenient that you're not showing it in its entirety, like you're trying to mask or hide something that you promote.
Yeah. So, my entire page is really about trying to promote what's going on in our community, and then trying to find national headlines that impact our community, right? And the state laws and regulations that impact our community, because it is a Brecksville Broadview Heights community page,
Right.
but you can't ignore politics. If you ignore politics, politics will not ignore you.
You're right.
They're-
You're very right.
Politics are coming after you, and so are these crazy leftists. And I get, oh God, there was one more thing on there. I'm getting hammered by these people because I'm using the creepy liberal women. I want to talk about this creepy liberal women thing. It's actually a funny story. So this past fall, before this page was even created, I was at a football game at Brecksville Broadview Heights High School,
Okay.
and walking around, going up to get the that awesome popcorn that they have there, the kettle corn, delicious, right? So there I am, and I hear a group of girls talking about the BBH Pride group, and one of the girls in the group called them creepy liberal women. Now, I wanted to go up to the girl and ask her, what she was referring to specifically, or if she could name one of those people. But it's pretty weird when a 50-year-old man goes up to a high school girl that he doesn't know. So I didn't want to be the creepy.
Good call. Good call.
the creepy husband of a teacher that goes and talks to the high school girls. I don't want to be that guy. So,
And there's a few of them. We grew up with you.
But I mean, think about it for a second. I mean, this phrase coined by a high school girl. I'm just saying. That's all I'm doing.
Here. Fair point. Fair point. I would like to go through a couple more of these while we still got them. This one, I think, to me personally, is the most ridiculous. Jordan Peterson, who's my second favorite Canadian. Who's your favorite?
My brother is a Canadian citizen.
Oh, that's crazy.
He lives in Toronto. I love to visit Toronto. It's a wonderful, wonderful city. People are great. The people are welcome. They're open, and they're just, I love that city. It is fantastic. Yeah.
So him being your second favorite Canadian always is able to put things into perspective. Totally. It seems to me that the Democrat Party platform is basically celebrating 7 deadly sins.
Yeah. So this is a bit of comedy too. I have another post that they didn't use.
Comedic tragedy.
Yeah. I have another post that I didn't use where I once said that if you want to understand the Democrat Party platform, all you have to do is read Karl Marx's Communist Manifesto and the 7 deadly sins. I'm not completely off.
Well, here's the other truth is it's rooted in everything in our culture and around us.
It is.
I'm not going to go totally down the wrong path, but a lot of it is, the satanic influence we have. And it's in our music, it's in our culture, it's everywhere. One of the things that the devil preaches to us is to put yourself first. Do what you want.
Right.
And Jesus tells you to do unto others as you wish to be done to you. Whereas the devil tells you to do what you want, take what you want, be your own God.
Yes.
And I think a lot of that is what we experience here. There's gluttony. There's,
Tell me
my
about
body,
it,
my
dude.
everything about me is this is my
It's all me.
world.
Yeah, it's all me.
And that's kind of rooted in this too.
And it really should be we.
Oh my God, this hive is so much bigger than you. And if you can't live with other opinions or combat the other opinions, if you're right, you should be able to take on any bad idea. If your idea is so good, it should beat all the bad ideas, but for some reason you need to turn ideas off. I would let your idea flourish, and there's a good chance I'd defeat it. That's why you're not sitting here.
Well, let me even add a little bit to the Jordan Peterson post. Okay. And I'm going to encourage anybody that is on the Brecksville Broadview Heights in the Know uncensored page, not the old one that censors everybody and throws you off if they don't like your comments. This particular post, as of today, was seen by 41 people,
whoop, whoop.
had 1 like and 0 comments. So no one really seemed to have a problem. So May 21st, go to my page, May 21st, listen to what Jordan Peterson says. Tell me if you disagree with it. But it's okay if you do.
Well, Jordan Peterson is a great.
He's got a sharp tongue.
Well, he's brilliant.
Yeah.
And again,
From Toronto,
mind
you know that,
can't-
right? He was thrown out of the University of Toronto where my brother graduated with his master's.
Do you know
and
why?
PhD.
Can you explain to us why?
Because he refused to accept the compelled speech of pronouns.
What it was legislation
Mhm.
that would criminalize and punish people for using the wrong pronouns.
Yes.
And one, he took just a philosophical position, which is we shouldn't be criminalizing and policing speech.
That's right.
But then he also took a secondary position where humans are people are humans, and humans have, faults. And
Mhm.
within them would be using something like this as a weapon.
Yes.
And we see that too. So that got him, as you said, shunned from, the areas of Toledo. And he took his positions to the world, out to the world stage.
Turned
And
him into a multimillionaire is what it did.
boy, they did the best thing for him.
Well, he's very smart. Don't agree with everything Jordan Peterson
course.
says. But I do like listening to him because he's able to help provide context.
Let's go on to a bigger point that you just kind of touched upon.
Okay.
You don't agree with him totally, but you could still find the virtues in some of the things he says.
Yeah.
So the things you disagree with, were those the clips you shared? No. It just so happened to be this one. The sad part is the people that got triggered by just the sight, the existence of Jordan Peterson. This one, you have my heart, and I want to have the unbiased empathy for both sides. But you lost me with Jordan Peterson because the truth is, I know you did not give this a chance. You saw the trigger point, somebody that you've been by the machine propagandized to be convinced is a bad guy. So you saw it, were triggered. This being something you said to the board, nothing in there said is truly that damning beyond the fact that Jordan Peterson is in it. And I imagine, again, not totally knowing the context of what he says in this video, there's a good chance that they would have had at least some appreciation for the point that he made, but were turned off by it simply at the beginning because of who it was.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
If you could indulge me, an example that I think is applicable to a major populace our society is up against or trying to work with.
Mm-hmm.
I was sitting in law school my first year, and one of the girls says, Mike Pence is pro-lobotomy, right? He lobotomizes gay people. He's pro-lobotomy for gay people. And I'm like, that simply is not true. Like that is a blatant lie. Now, in school, we're allowed to have a laptop. So I just pull out we're all on them. And I'm like, listen, I'm looking everywhere, and there's nothing here that indicates that Mike Pence is pro-lobotomy. Then another girl chimes in. Oh no, he is. He's pro-lobotomy. And I go, okay, I'm telling you right now, I'm looking and I'm not finding anything to that effect. Could you in fact, all the articles I'm finding are the opposite. Could you find me something that shows that? No, and of course they couldn't come up with it. I left that room and I continue to do further research because I'm like, hey, if there's a guy that I appreciate that's doing this crazy stuff like that would change my opinion, then I definitely need to get to the bottom of this. Somebody challenged my reality. And so I went and proactively continued to work and hone on the truth. They were isolated in their ignorance. Their reality was challenged by somebody outside of them. What did they do? They isolated and entrenched themselves in their ignorance, and they left that room continuing to preach and scream the ignorance that I researched and found out was totally false. Now, through that research, I found out that Mike Pence didn't let like the women around him read the Bible. He was just like that heart of a crazy Christian, and it was like, okay, I've learned through my research, I found something that changed my opinion of him, and I'm willing to make those concessions. On the flip side of the balance scale, you have people that are just isolated in their ignorance, refuse to challenge it and learn, because then it shakes the reality that they're so entrenched in. And for that, they will proactively defend their ignorances.
Well, I just wonder what professor taught them that.
I think it's the hive mind. You got to remember, we're all plugged into this.
Hive mind,
It's
course,
this thing. And so you have folks that are plugged into a whole nother algorithm that's pushing them a whole nother way. And truthfully, this is my crazy side. You know, this is where you and I, the Y in the road.
Yeah.
I think it's calculated. Just as much as they're pushing the red people the red way, they're pushing the blue people the blue way. Because as long as you're fighting each other, you're not fighting the people that just stole all of your money and gave it to gender study classes in Pakistan.
I do believe that this entire conversation is a perfect example of how they want to have us divided.
Exactly.
They truly do. And where I think the BBH Pride group takes advantage of it as they target individuals like me, what they're doing is they're taking people, the vast majority, that silent majority that agree with me, that can't stand up and say anything because they're afraid of their business. They're afraid that their spouse will be targeted. They're afraid their children would be targeted.
Can I propose to you, the people, society at large, the way of addressing this problem, especially if you see the problem in this lens, it goes back to something my dad proposed about weed in the NFL. Because if you remember, Josh Gordon just couldn't figure it out. And my dad had suggested, he goes, you know, if there's because there was like a silent majority of players that were doing it but weren't getting caught. They knew when the testing was, and there was like this culture, at least so was claimed by a lot of these players. Well, if that's the case, if the NFL, if the players union wanted to beat this so bad, what they all needed to do was all on one day, everybody should smoke a joint. And then what are you going to do? Fire us all?
No,
and so part of this is, if you agree with this type of speech, or you at least agree with a particular position, you know, I always used to think hate and evil was the worst force in our world, but the Bible also indicates to it too. The truth is, the worst force is complacency. Because it is complacency that allows the evil not only to exist but to fester and grow. You actually have an outward obligation to stand for what you think is right, and you may be wrong, but if you're coming from an open heart, I'm not trying to be right, I'm just trying to be liberated from my ignorances. If you come from that type of position, then you could have a fruitful approach, even if you're taking an ignorant position. All right. So here, I would like to, if you don't mind,
that's a great one.
Okay, tell me about it.
All right, I got to take my glasses off so I can.
Well, so this is the proposed equity statement that the leaders of BVH are considering.
Brexville, it should be BBH. So sorry about that.
It's a good thing this will not be a binding legal document, and I will not obligate anyone to anything except to admit that the leaders are crazy and need to be replaced. We certainly need to keep the creepy pride women away from our children.
Yeah, so I can't read this because they didn't. I don't know where they got their screenshots. May 23rd, everybody. But the equity statement is there. I don't. they're not going to pass it anyway. I can kind of read that though.
We strive to make our service and program accessible and open to all individuals. Bravia commits itself to ensuring equity, diversity, and inclusion in all aspects. So, what is this? A contract that they're making people sign?
No, this is just a statement that the BBH Pride group had sent to the mayor of Broadview Heights. Hey, here's a great idea or a great example of the equity statement that we would like the city to endorse.
Okay. That one's not too.
Yeah.
What are we thinking here?
Eric Church. Oh, sorry. So the comments there, let's see. Catholic Diocese of Lexington issues a statement using male pronouns referring to a woman who identifies as a transgender monk. Okay. So I had to read this like 30 times before I really understood what was happening here. So this is where I go into, and you and I have talked about this actually when we went through the communist goals of 1963.
Okay.
About how the communists were trying to infiltrate the Catholic Church, and it turns out that they actually did a pretty good job. I point out that, hey, listen, almost all the priests are righteous, but there are, you lost me again, but there are a few bad apples. I can't read it anymore. Right, just a few bad apples. The American churches would embrace Christian nationalism and fully vetted those applicants for the priesthood. We would be in much better shape. So this was an opinion that, so it says 6 days ago, but it's not 6 days ago. I don't know when this was actually posted. Milo Yiannopoulos, you and I have talked about him several times. And one of the things that Milo said at the Cleveland Right to Life event that he spoke at like 2 or 3 years ago. He's standing there next to his priest, and many Catholic churches were in that room. And he said something that is extremely explosive to say. And he said, why can't we just ask the Catholic Church to stop hiring gay priests? Fascinating concept.
Sure.
Right. I don't know the answer to that question. I don't think that they hire gay priests, but something had been happening in the Catholic Church for a long time, and it was a serious problem. I hope they have it fixed out or fixed. But the irony about this whole thing is that the same liberals that are trying to push things like the Trevor Project and transgenderism at the middle school and high school level are the same ones who are also saying, well, what about the Catholic Church?
Right.
It seems like a double standard to me.
Oh, 100%. Sure. I wanted, because I know you said you wanted this last half hour to be more directed. So I'm looking here.
Do we have comments or questions?
We don't. If there's anybody out there that has any comments or questions that you'd like to have Don address, please head on over to the comments. We'd be able to feature your question and we could have Don address them.
Otherwise, we get into the meat and potatoes about this right here.
Sure. So let me just scan through. You could pause and see what's up here, because I think we're almost here at the end. This is the last one.
Oh, so I am constantly being berated by a couple people on my site about high school transgender athletes, right? A transgender female joining the track team and winning the state tournament doesn't seem very fair to me.
Sure.
And I'm being called the crazy one here.
Well, I think a lot of this isn't because right now you're in the court of public opinion, right? And
Sure.
so the question isn't discerning. Oh my gosh, Jordan Dean with a wild comment.
Who's your favorite gay? All right, so I'm going to answer Jordan Dean. I have a lot of gay friends, but Jordan Dean is my favorite gay guy.
Wait, the guy who commented it is your favorite?
Oh yes.
Well, cheers to you, Jordan. You're
You're
number one.
He's a great dude. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Jordan Dean because he decided to make a comment. Can other people see
Yeah, well,
this comment?
well, okay,
No,
here it is.
Yeah, why don't you all, let people
Jordan Dean's number
let
one.
people see that. Jordan Dean is a great dude. He is going to be the man of honor at my son's wedding.
Oh, exciting.
Because he is the best friend of my son's fiance.
Oh, that's fun.
And he'll be the man of honor.
It's interesting question. My favorite is SpongeBob.
You think SpongeBob's gay?
Bert and Ernie actually is number one. Because it's official. Actually, Dumbledore. We went back and rewrote that one too.
You want to hear a funny story?
Yes.
When my wife took me home, she's gonna kill me for this. Oh my god! When my wife took me home to her parents the first time, they were sure that I was gay. Not kidding. It was the summer of 1992. No, summer of 1993. I think the math gets hard as I get older, and I had still had a mullet. Still had it, yeah.
A mullet.
Yeah,
it's fresh.
I had two ear piercings here. You can still see them if you look real close. I had one here.
Hawaiian shirts and mullets.
Oh no, I wasn't wearing Hawaiian shirts at the time. I was wearing t-shirts that had my fraternity on them.
Hey.
And I'll let my wife comment on what those t-shirts looked like, but they didn't look great. They weren't very well kept.
Fair.
Yeah. So, just a funny little story.
Love it. Love it. All right. So I guess there's a series of comments that are being held against you. You have here just the notes of what a lot of them have said. So,
yeah, so a
lot of them are, negating trans people in sports.
Yeah. So what I did here is
women.
I circled the ones that I thought could be considered the most
egregious.
All
right. So on the creepy white women page.
Yeah.
The problem is almost everyone doesn't like this stuff being exposed to children. But the crazies raise so much of a ruckus that people are afraid to express how they feel about it because they're afraid it will affect their livelihood. Or they'll be physically attacked. The same thing happened if you were anti-slavery and lived in the South. That's the most egregious on this page?
Yeah.
Wow. Another comment. Almost everyone. Correct. Almost everyone. You're one of the few exceptions, along with the liberal creepy women in the quote pride group. You clearly think it's okay to teach gay sex to kindergartners and to cut the breasts off of middle school girls. Here's okay.
That's a good one.
A thing that I'm seeing
and then we
of
do have a comment
is
we'll have to go to.
a lot of addressing towards a group. And then you want to, so we look at the board, we look at the group that you're in an organization with, or we look at the organization you're a part of, and you want to ask them. So take a step back, don't be afraid, don't be politically manipulated and coerced. If you were to analyze this and ask yourself, take a step back, third person, how is this nothing but disgruntlement between two groups, right? This is a group that doesn't like what he's saying, and he has a lot to say about them because he's not a big fan of whatever they believe or what they're doing. why are you involving yourself? Why are you refereeing this match? And why are you picking a winner and picking a side? That seems like a dangerous position to take, but it's because politically, it's the only position they're allowed to take. Had they taken the inverse position, I think the house of cards comes down. So they have two options: either intervene in the favor of the other simply because it protects them, or do nothing. Maybe for the sake of justice, consider doing nothing, because this isn't your business. Like, it isn't that you're doing something to damn the organization or the people involved. It's really one very loud organization continues to be the squeaky wheel, and it's like a civil case. Like, this is an issue between two parties. Why are you refereeing it, and why are you involving yourself with choosing a winner? And the reason they can is because the other side is never going to take arms and push back. I think if they were faced with 50 screenshots of manipulating and propagandizing our children, then they wouldn't be able, because if one side is so silent, they'll always be able to take the other side safely. We need to stop making that decision so safe.
Well, we really need people to step up and start fighting back against these types of organizations.
That being a perfect transition to the comment here. So let me ask, how has this issue affected your family as a whole and, domestically, internally?
Well, yeah. So first off, anytime someone is accused of being a racist or a sexist, racist is really just a bad thing. Right? It's horrifying, right? I'm not a racist. I'm not a bigot. I'm not a sexist.
Don't you get the game is they won the moment you have to make once you make the statement, I'm not homophobic. They won.
Where they win,
I'm not racist.
Where they win is if I said, I just can't, I can't engage in this fight. I don't have time to engage in this fight. It's going to hurt my family. That's where they win. That's where they win. So I'm none of those. I'm not a homophobe. I'm not a transphobe.
But back to the overscope of your whole family. How has it affected the family as a whole?
Well, one particular person on my page is attacking my wife with vicious force.
And not because she's involved in this dialogue or posting any of this, but because I
think she's probably the driving force behind all of this insanity. That's what I believe.
Why is that? Okay,
because I put two and two together.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I have to tread very lightly because there are other things that are getting ready to happen.
Sure.
So
respectfully.
Yeah. But there's one or two people who have just been completely.
I like Sue here. I agree. Staying silent is giving up our freedom. We speak up and we get targeted or canceled. But again, it gets back to the Josh Gordon piece. Well, if we all speak up, they can't cancel everybody.
I miss Sue. She's a wonderful person. She raised two great boys, and just a great woman.
Cheers. So let me ask you this as we kind of land this plane.
Where are we on time?
We got about 12 minutes here. Again, I'm willing to go over if you are. I'm in no rush, but
again, I'd like to still
continue to go through these.
I circled those for a reason.
This is a trigger word. Again, only because I think it's a word you can't combat. That's why you need algorithms to protect it. But we're on David's content.
We got to protect words now.
But we're on Don's content this today, so we can say with vigor, grooming.
Okay.
So, do you want me to read the comment?
Yeah, please.
So, last school year, some girls reported boys hanging out in the girls' restrooms at the high school. The girls reported it, and there was a very tepid response from the administration. The girls were told they could use an office faculty room if they felt unsafe. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Several parents were quietly trying to get students to react in a way that forced the administration to listen and would cause a lot of inconvenience to the school, but there was one problem. The girls were honor students. They didn't want to do anything that could get them in trouble or cause
yeah. So let me paint this picture. So
it's tough to read these.
Yeah, it is. It is. Several occasions, girls had boys walking into their restroom. The girls go to report it. The response is tepid. The parents then go to the school, the principal, they go to the school board. The response is almost nothing. In one instance, I'm not going to talk about that because I didn't get permission to talk about that part of the story. The girls were really afraid to put up a big fight because they're honor students and didn't want to jeopardize their, getting letters of recommendation and all types of things. So there were some parents who were saying, hey, why don't we just go ahead and get a group of girls to go to the administration bathroom? Because that's what the school district said, or the high school said. If you feel unsafe, come to this bathroom. It's a single use bathroom, I believe. Right. So we were thinking, well, let's just get 30 girls to go do it. Girls couldn't do it. They don't want to get in trouble.
If Don,
I mean, you understand. I mean,
here's the reality. If the threat of this coercion wasn't so strong, we wouldn't have administrations across the nation installing kitty litter boxes for your children that identify as cats. And you say it wouldn't get to that point. Like, here's the point. The claim is you give an inch, they take a mile. There were friends that I went to law school with, couldn't have been closer with. Specifically one friend, she's lesbian. She would get really upset that her rights, she's like, I'm just trying to fight for me and my right to marry my wife. And that being conflated with puberty inhibitors is super jacked up. She'd get really upset with that. Completely different. Yeah. But the problem is, Don, we're talking about, I've done the numbers before. We're looking at 1.2% of the country, 350 million people. 1.2% of them are gay, 1% of them are trans, and 1% are the rest of the letters. So again, we're talking about at most a 3% of the tribe is having the voice of 50%. And we have to mask that because if we really, utilitarianism, if we took the John Locke approach, we really wouldn't be able to pay much mind to the people that have body dysmorphia.
Yeah. I'd like to just wrap up with a final thought here. We're close to that time, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All of those things that I've been accused of are just absolutely absurd. There isn't a single reasonable person on this planet that knows me that believes I'm a racist, sexist, bigoted, homophobe, transphobe. There isn't. All I want to do is make sure that my children, I've raised 4 children. I still have 1 in high school. I want to make sure that my children and soon my grandchildren, as they're going through our government-run schools, are not going to be taken advantage of by groups like BBH Pride, who are sharing really bad material. I don't think it's their intent, but we can't focus on the intentions. We have to focus on the results. And the results are the Trevor Project and other parts of the literature that they spread are neo-Marxist materials, and they don't belong in school at all. But the fact of the matter is, administrators won't even stand up to them. They're coming after you. They're coming after all of us. The theater is just the first step. I have other things that I do that I know they're coming after. My wife is a teacher in this school district, and we've already got the crazies coming after her.
So I love that wrapping point. I since we do have a few last minutes here,
Okay.
I do want, I can't just let this be a total put the ball on the tee and let Don slam away. So
Fair.
I want to give at least one challenging pushback, and
Okay.
I'd like to hear your response.
All right.
So as we presented a lot of the evidence that the organization has been inundated with by, the LGBTQ pride people, you have spoken about your uncensored page
Mhm.
and how one of the requirements is the acceptance of the First Amendment and freedom of speech.
Yes.
But as you and I have continuously in the past had dialogues about the First Amendment and freedom of speech, we've also acknowledged in the past that there is not an unfettered freedom of speech. There are limitations, obscenity being one of them. So when we talk about comedy, this was just comedy, or the line where it meets vulgarity,
Mhm.
there's this question, right? So there's the subjective where your feelings are hurt, but I found it funny. And for us to all live in a tribe together, communally, we have to accept the objective. So somebody, a judge somewhere in the high mountain, had to decide what that standard is. When we cross over to the objective obscenity or vulgarity. But there's a sliding scale. Your freedom at the pool is significantly different than your freedom at your job or at school. And so case law in the past for the First Amendment at schools, when can a school infringe or limit your freedom of speech? And the case law has shown that it's when your speech reaches the schoolhouse gate. So if it makes it to school, right? Like your post on Facebook that you posted from home and exists away cannot be limited up until the point that it's brought into school. So if let's say you had two school students that, Susie posted something mean about Stacy and they got in a fight at school, how much can that be used as evidence for who's at fault and everything else? Well, the fact that it was brought into the schoolhouse gate, that it crossed the schoolhouse gate, is now impacting the school. The school now has a legitimate interest to intervene. So that all being said, there still seems to be a conflict with, I don't think anybody is going to deny your right to be you and say what you want. But if and when it has reached the schoolhouse gate and has had an impact, how do you distinguish your speech from that which can be limited or as some may take the position, should be?
Oh, well, okay. So imagine a book in a school that has sex scenes in it, say in middle school, and it's assigned to the kids, or it's one of the choices. And the child gets the book, brings it home, reads it, goes to dad and says, "Dad, look at this stuff that's in this book." Dad goes to a school board meeting, reads what's in that book that was provided
what they
to his
are
kids,
providing,
and gets shut down because he's saying vulgar things. That actually has happened.
of course.
It's all over social media. It's all over.
I wish we had the time to have it as a prop, but that one book that they're pushing for, there was like a specific book that was disseminated into the libraries, and it literally teaches kids how to engage in oral sex. And it's like, this, where do you draw the line? Like, find the justification, the necessity for this, when I can't, read about Johnny Appleseed because it's, it from a time period where things make us feel hurt.
Or you can't read The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn,
Right.
because it exposes the racism of the Democrat Party. Why do you think that's not in it? It's not because of the N-word. They say that that's what it is. It's because, these slaves are owned by Democrats.
Exactly. That's a great point. I know we're getting here, but
Yeah,
I
we
don't want to
gotta-
leave here without addressing Judy K's comment here.
Oh, Judy K. Oh,
So Judy says, thank you for doing this. I have no problem with kidlets learning about sexuality, but when they are older, middle school, let our kids be kids.
Yeah.
I have a friend that I've grown up with, and he got inflamed by something I had posted a couple Junes ago, happy month. And he confronted me on it. Hey, now I'm gay now, and this offends me. And I
well, hang
stood
on.
by.
He was gay before.
Well, of course, right.
He just came out to you. He finally felt comfortable to come out to you.
No,
Good
sure.
for him.
No. Again, sure. We grew apart, and he just was offended by my post. So I encourage him to come on my podcast, and let's address that. I don't agree. I don't see eye to eye.
Yeah.
Of course, when he came on, we talked about nothing but real estate. He avoided the truth of what we were there for, totally, for preservation's purposes. But one of the pieces he brought up to me was, you have no idea how hard it was growing up, and I'm learning about straight sex, and it's in Disney movies, and it's everywhere. Straightness is pushed on me, and in a whirlwind of straight sex, I felt isolated. It was crippling. I'm a victim. And here's where I think Judy K's point knocks it out of the park. If that's your position, rainbow person, that you were a victim and you were crippled by the overwhelming amount of straight sex around you, then maybe aiding this problem isn't inundating the whole situation with gay sex to just throw more sexual content at them. Maybe we should take note from them, and maybe we should just be teaching less sexual content to kids.
Yeah.
Like, we're going the opposite direction.
Well, I mean, call me crazy. All right. And a lot of people do. But I will tell you this. No one handed Adam and Eve a video on how to do it. They figured it out. The kids are going to figure it out. Now, of course, we have sexually transmitted diseases and things and malicious behavior. And that's for moms and dads to teach their sons and daughters about those things.
Right.
And it's even okay,
heaven forbid,
for schools to teach that, especially when they get into high school, because kids do get more sexually active into the high school years and into the college years. But I mean, we went from a world where water was free and porn was expensive to a world where porn is free and water is expensive. I don't think,
and full of plastic that's messing up our hormones and making you think you're a guy when you're a girl.
I don't think we need to spend a whole lot of time talking about sex in school, but I do think we need to teach our kids how to read and how to write and how to do math and science and all of those things. Because as I mentioned before, our institution of education is collapsing. We're focusing on the wrong things.
No, you're so right. You're so right. So
that's where I would end it if I were you.
100%. I'm with you. We appreciate all the people that joined us and added comments to add a dynamic to the show. Do you have any other wrapping thoughts before we close? Like you said, that was a good thought to end on.
Oh no, I'm ready to go home, hopping in my pool. I'm just gonna go. I don't know if it's still hopefully it's still sunny out and hot.
We're cooking. It's 90.
Gonna listen to some Jimmy Buffett, some Greta Van Fleet, right? And we'll have a good time.
That's right. That's right. Cheers to people that want to engage in a dialogue that isn't coming from a malicious place and just wants to grow and learn from each other. We appreciate everybody that joined us. And Don, thank you for the interview.
Thank you.
I think it was fruitful. Cheers. Bye, everybody.
See you, everyone.